Because a non-dual experience means that what you're looking at right now through your eyes, you're seeing yourself. You're seeing yourself because all there is consciousness. You're looking at consciousness, and that's what you are. Now, so you're always seeing yourself when you're looking at the world, right? You're looking because you're seeing consciousness. That's the radical and dramatic other realm of existence that most people don't know about. That's the realm of existence that most people don't know about. Most people are living in the separate self world, aren't they? I'm separate from you, we're all separate from one another, we're living in time and space, you know, and all the game that involves in terms of how to live in time and space, how to play this game, how to play the money-making game, how to play the happiness is somewhere else game. You know, that's the game. Happiness is somewhere else. It's not here, it's somewhere else, so we're going to pursue it. Right? And everywhere that people attempt to pursue happiness, when they get there, it's not there. And then it isn't long after they get there and it's not there that another idea comes up, oh, it's over there. So then you start pursuing it in that direction, right? So it could be you're pursuing money, then you become a millionaire and you're miserable. So you start pursuing relationships, and then you have to get divorced and you're miserable. So you start pursuing sport. The more your interest and activity is out there, as if there's an out there, and you're separate from it, the more frustration and disappointment you're going to experience. That's why he was talking about no hope. No hope is a teaching. Hope is what it's like people are hoping when it's like about the bad things about to happen. I hope it doesn't. I hope this is a better year than last year. What does that mean? What does it mean? You know, and the reason a lot of teachers talk about hope and say there's no hope, because it's true. The fact of the matter is there is no hope. Things are going to be the way they are. That's the way it's always going to be. They're not going to be the way. They're never going to be the way you want them to be. If that happens, it's just coincidental, right? But people don't understand that. They think if it happens, oh, I'm on to something. I'm on to something. So I'm going to like try and do whatever I was doing to make this happen. I'm going to try and do some more of that to make it happen again. Never works. Never works because reality never repeats itself, right? So it's good. It's very good. You know, one of my teachers wrote a book called Abandon Hope. There is no hope. Things are going to be the way they are. And you're better off to get related to that, right? Because if you're not related to reality, if you're related to your mind, and in your mind is where you play these games, right? They're mind games. Hope is a mind game, right? You're trying to like talk yourself into being okay when you're not. You know? That's one of the reasons these teachings are so important, is because it's inevitable. You know, we're raised by a tribe, right, that believes in duality. We're raised by a tribe that believes in the separate self. We're raised by a tribe that believes in the pursuit of happiness. You know, we're raised by a tribe that is so childlike and so inconsistent and so reactive that what we're doing as a tribe is we're ruining we're not raising our children, we're just passing on our sickness. We're just passing on our sickness to our children. The sickness, and the problem with it is that most of humanity doesn't know they're sick. They think sick is healthy. Most of humanity has it backwards. Most of humanity has that being sick, being self-centered, being selfish, being greedy, that's good. That's where we're going, right? That's good. More money, more money, more money. More possessions. So it's an inevitability that you and I were born with and raised with a corrupt mind. We were born with and raised with a corrupt mind because we learn this way of being from our parents. and from the other crazy people, So we have this corrupt mind. We have this crazy mind that believes things that are never going to be true. The state of mind that we're in believes things that are never going to be true. And so what happens is, as we go through life, and we get triggered, we get stimulated by the environment, right? Material gets triggered in the mind, right? Because the mind is a collection of all the experiences you've ever had since you took your first breath. It's all there, A multi-sensory, one of my teachers used to define the mind like this: a multi-sensory total record of successive moments of now. A multi-sensory total record of successive moments of now. That means everything that ever happened to you is there in that collection, in the mind, right? And then what happens is that things happen, and things happen in your moment-to-moment life that trigger material from the past. And when that material starts to play, right? When that material starts to play, you start to experience the emotions from another time, right? You start to experience the emotions from another situation, because when it gets triggered, when that material gets triggered, it comes up and it's who you are and what's going to happen when you die and that you're a sinner and all that jazz. No. When you wake up to this truth, you're not a sinner. When you wake up to this truth, you and God are sharing the same energy when you wake up to this truth. And when you wake up to this truth, all of your neurotic material that has been causing all the problems in terms of your erratic emotions, in terms of your getting into these mood states, this depression, these anxieties, all that behavior and all those emotional experiences and psychological experiences that come from your conditioning will start to gradually dissipate. Why? Because you're not banking there anymore. You see what I mean? When that's all you knew, that was the only bank in town. You had to do business with it, right? But now you're discovering there is a possibility that is real, and it's a possibility that delivers the goods. And the goods are freedom. The goods are peace of mind. The goods are satisfaction. And it's an already existing reality that's there. It's very important for you to understand that this is not a matter of you're going to go from being a personality through these practices that we're going to change you from being a personality in a physical body into something else. That's not what this is. You have never been anything but what you really are. That's important for you to understand, that when you're practicing meditation, you're visiting. When you practice meditation and you move your attention, to the resting as awareness, right? When you're resting as awareness, you're visiting the truth. You're visiting yourself. You're visiting the reality of yourself when you're doing that. And although it may be a brief glimpse, although it may be brief, right, because you have a bad habit of thinking, although it may be brief, right, even if it's brief, when you touch it, you know it's real. When you have the experience, you know it's real. That's what I mean when I say when you're practicing meditation, you've got to have persistence, you've got to have patience, you've got to do this consistently over time, because your mind is not going to let go easily. That's why it takes time. Your mind is not going to let go easily, right? But if you stay the course and you keep doing these practices, gradually what will happen is the material that's been in the way will gradually begin to dissipate, will gradually begin to calm down, and you will begin to experience something. This is what I mean. If you've been practicing meditation, eventually, if you persist and you do these practices correctly, eventually as you're sitting there, something will occur. You may not even be able to say what, you may not be able to describe it, but something happens. Right? Has anybody here know what I'm talking about? Yeah, sure. If you're sitting there and you've been doing this practice for a while, at some point you'll be relaxed enough physically and calm enough mentally. There'll be enough of what's not real out of the way that what's real will be there. And when what's real is there, when it's vibrating there, there'll be an experience of something. You could say something shifts. You know, there's an experience of something. That's the beginning of experiencing the reality of what you are. That's the beginning of experiencing the reality of what you are. And in order to take that further, you know, because obviously if you are what you are and you can experience it through these teachings and practices, then it must be possible for you to experience it consistently. It must be possible. And the people who have been masters of these teachings and practices tell us that it is. It is. So what you want to do, especially if you've been doing the formal practice, what you want to do is you want to begin to make sure that you're doing the informal practice. Okay? Because if you get this, if you understand what these teachings and practices are, then you know that you have a possibility of experiencing a kind of freedom and peace of mind and a kind of satisfaction that may have been unavailable to you up until now. That's available to every human being. It comes with the equipment. You're born with it. It's your birthright. So if you stay with this and you maintain the commitment that it takes over time, eventually things will start to loosen up. Eventually the lights will start to come on. And if you do the informal practice, it will accelerate the process. So when you leave here today, when you're done, if you're watching this video, when you're done watching this video, or when you leave this class today, see how long you can maintain being aware of being aware. That's what the informal practice is. See how long. See if you can stay aware of being aware all the way until you get home. Or notice between now and when you get home when the thinking comes in and you're back into that, like that. See, you have to know the difference. You have to be able to see the difference to do the informal practice, right? And a lot of times people can't do the informal practice very effectively because they don't notice that they're thinking. They don't notice that they're thinking. That was the problem in the beginning of the formal practice, that you don't notice that you're thinking, and it takes a while before you realize, oh, I'm not aware of the breath anymore. That's the same thing that happens with the informal practice, isn't it? Yeah, you're aware that you're aware, right? And you're being aware of awareness, and we are aware of what's happening in the awareness, right? And then at some point, it's just thinking, right? You want to know that. You want to know that difference, right? Because at some point, if you continue with these practices and you study these teachings, at some point, you'll be in the middle of your crazy mind. At some point, you'll be in the middle of your crazy mind, and it'll disappear. This is what happened with Candace O'Denver. You know, she had an experience of awakening, a spontaneous experience of awakening. She was sitting in a Denny's having a cup of coffee, and she woke up. Right? And then after that happened, she got interested in what happened. You know, is there anybody else that knows about this? And that's when she discovered her teacher and the teaching and so forth. So you have to understand what's available, and you have to understand that this is real. This is not like they told you in school. This is real. This is an experience that's possible, not a belief. All right. Any questions?
I have to go to confession.
What's that?
I have to go to confession.
Wouldn't it be great to know that there's nothing to confess?
When I was a child, I was taught God lives in my heart, so I should be kind to others. That was my Sunday school.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't like I'm a sinner.
Well, yeah, I'm saying some people were fortunate and they didn't have to go through that, right? But even that, right? You see, that's the thing. Even that, right? That's a practice for the person, isn't it? Practice being kind, right? Believe that God's in your heart. Believe that God's in your heart, right? Practice being kind. But what if you were actually experiencing that place to come from instead of just doing it as a practice? Instead of practicing it being a good person, what if being a good person was just your nature? What if being loving and kind to people was just your nature? You didn't have to practice it. Even when somebody did something that caused your mind to go crazy and caused you to get upset and caused you to get mad, right? And you're not following that, you're still peaceful. Yeah.
When you were young and you were thinking this,
Oh, I kept it to myself. I mean, I talked about it a little bit with my friends, you know, we laughed about it together. But no, because, you know, when you're small, you think it's you. You think these things really are true, and if I have a problem with it, it's just about me. It's not about whether it's true, because you're a little, you know what I mean? If you go to church and you're in this church with all the, you know, that's why they made the churches so big and grandiose, right? So you don't question anything. It's interesting because very few people get to have that experience. You know, I was working with these people that are supposed to be so scary, monsters, right? So scary. And I didn't experience that with them. Even the worst of the worst. You know, I sat down with serial killers and talked to them. And if you didn't know, if somebody was there that didn't know what they did, you would never guess. You would never guess because they were just ordinary people. They were just ordinary people. Right? We have these ideas about other people, you know, they're monsters and all that stuff, you know. It's just a very sad situation that they get into a state of mind, right, that is taken on this form that is dangerous, and it's, you know, it's not in touch with reality at all. It's living in a nightmare. They're living in a nightmare. So these teachings and practices offer us an opportunity to come out of the dream and come out of the scariness of it all and start to relax and experience that everything is okay. Nothing has to change. Nothing has to be different. And everything is okay just as it is. This is the high teaching. It's called the great perfection. Everything is okay just as it is. And so if you start to wake up through these teachings and practices, right, you can begin to allow yourself to relax and experience the perfection of reality. It's the perfection of reality. You know, we believe that we have to control things, we have to change things, and so forth and so on. But when you start to study the truth, you come to realize that it's an illusion that you can do anything. There's no such thing as a doer. So you can relax, because everything you thought you were doing was happening through you, not from you. You got that? Everything that you thought you were doing was happening through you, not from you, right? And so you can relax. You don't have to bear the responsibility now of what's coming through. You can relax and allow the light of awareness to shine. Everything will get resolved. You think that you have to resolve it, but you can't resolve anything. Everything will get resolved by itself. You can relax. You can let go of the responsibility. You can let go of the burden and the pressure of thinking that you got to get this right and relax. The only thing that you need to do if you want to be happy is begin to enjoy the fact that you exist. That's it. That's the gold. Right? The only thing you need to be happy is to begin to enjoy the fact that you exist. Your existence is the most precious thing you have, right? And for most people, they have no idea that that's the case. Just begin to experience you're happy because you exist. Now, you're happy because you exist, but then there's material that gets triggered and plays in your mind, right? So when that happens, you just be with it. That's all. You just be with it. You don't do anything about it. It's a mistaken program. It's playing material that's unnecessary for it to play. Yeah? And if you just stay awake and see it for what it is, that eventually it will pass. And so you can get the mind to fulfill on its potential to be tranquil. You can get the mind to fulfill on its potential to be tranquil by training it, and the way you train it to be realistic and to experience tranquility, right, is to be present to it while it runs the material that's no longer relevant. You're just present to it while it runs the material that's no longer relevant. Because you're not involved with it, you're not engaged with it, you're not trying to control it, right? It'll keep losing its ability to exist until it disappears. Does that make sense? If you just leave it alone, just be aware that it's there, just leave it alone and practice relaxing, and it will unwind on its own. There's nothing you need to do. You can sit through it, you can sit with it, And over time, you'll start to notice it's less and less of a problem, it's less and less bothering you. And when you get clear enough, when you get a clear enough experience of yourself, then you know directly, you have direct knowledge called wisdom, right? Then you have direct knowledge called wisdom, you have direct knowledge of how it all works. Okay? When you have direct knowledge of how it all works, all you have to do now is practice your way out of the dream. Practice your way out of the dream by sitting still and being quiet, relaxing the body and calming the mind. Just by doing that consistently over and over again, repeating that, the effect begins to occur in which there is a sense of well-being that's always there. And as we begin to pay more attention to our true nature as awareness, that experience of well-being starts to become more and more available. So that's the basic situation when it comes to these teachings and practices. The teachings are very important, and the practices make the teachings come alive. And if you make the commitment, if you're convinced of the truth and you make the commitment to these practices, right, you will eventually start to experience more and more calm, more and more quiet, more and more well-being. And the things that were threatening you lose their power. When you know yourself as the awareness, you know the truth. And the truth is that the awareness cannot be threatened because it's real. What is real cannot be threatened. That's the summary statement of the Course in Miracles. What is real cannot be threatened. And what is unreal doesn't exist. And what is unreal that doesn't exist is the personality. That's pretty radically intense when you really consider it, you know, that who you took yourself to be and what you took yourself to be literally doesn't exist. That's a big relief when you let it go, because you don't have to carry your past around anymore. You can let that go. You can let go of the future and you can let go of the past, and you can begin to understand the only reality there is what's happening right now. Your whole life. Your whole life will only happen in the present moment. It will never happen anywhere else. So if you can be there for the present moment and you can have a spirit of equanimity, you can be even with what's happening all the time, then life becomes a dance. Yeah, because you're not going through the catastrophe, you're watching the catastrophe happening. You're not in the catastrophic experience yourself. It's happening in your mind. It's playing in your mind, right? The ultimate realization, the ultimate possibility is smiling at the gallows. That's the ultimate possibility. When we hear that, it's like, oh no, that's impossible. That's impossible. Yeah, that's why my teacher uses that phrase when he says, you know, smile at the gallows, right? Because he wants to tickle you. He wants you to see how far away you are from the truth. Because if you were experiencing reality as it is, you could smile at the gallows, you could smile at somebody that's got a gun on you, you could smile at anything because nothing's threatening, because nothing can happen to you. See, we can talk that way we could talk that way here, but it won't mean anything. You know what I mean? That's just talk. That's just conceptual language, right? But at least we can talk about the possibility like it's a real possibility, and there are people who have realized it, so there are models for this. You know, this is not something that doesn't exist, it exists. There are people who are literally experiencing this, you know, and have gone through the challenges and faced the challenges and didn't affect them. So that's what's available. And even if through your practice and understanding, right, you become awake enough to eliminate a fair percentage of the suffering, hey, that's not bad, right? What would you like to have? Suffering or 50% suffering? Suffering or 75% suffering? You know, which would you like to have? Less suffering is better. Yeah? So if you practice these practices and you understand that they do work, And you have the support that you need. And all you have to do is stay with it. That's why I say in this class, the purpose of this class is not for you to try meditation. It's for you to understand that this simple practice that you can do every single day works, but only if you do it every single day. And you don't have any problem understanding that when it comes to your teeth. So why should you have a problem with this? It's the same thing. You know, every time you meditate, if you do a nice 30-minute sit, right, what you're doing is you're restarting the machine. You know, you're rebooting the machine. It's a good thing to reboot that machine, right? If you had a computer, would you be using Windows 98? It's a good thing to boot that machine, even from day to day to boot it. Restart it every day fresh, right? Because living in the moment doesn't require that you remember all the past.